Hey guys, welcome. Fix Your Shitty Movement. I'm Karis. So last time we went over the squat, and it was a really important one because there's so much going into it. But the main point, the main takeaway, I hope, well, there's so fucking many, is that you need to learn how to hinge your hips. And that goes for the deadlift, right, which we went over before, and as you learned last time, the squat too is fundamentally a hip hinge. So I was gonna do low bar versus high bar, and that is coming because it is important, but I think we need to, really drill the hip hinge a little bit more. And that's why those guys are out. Because, like I said, with the goblet squat, kettlebells are small, fairly easy to maneuver in, compared to a barbell, for example, right? And the margin of error, let's put it this way, it is harder to hurt yourself with a kettlebell than it is with a barbell in most cases. Now, the way some of you motherfuckers swing around a kettlebell, that's not true. But people are a lot more concerned about hurting themselves with a kettlebell than is really necessary. Mainly, I want you to see the relationship between the kettlebell and the barbell so that you learn to use the kettlebell better, first of all, but also just see it as a way to improve your barbell skills, right? Because as I've said before, the kettlebell really isn't very forgiving in that if you don't have your body in the right position, you're not really going to be able to pull it off, at least not for long. With the barbell, you can definitely pull it off badly for quite some time. I was deadlifting badly until I hit 285, and that's when I plateaued. Mercifully, I didn't hurt my back. That was enough to get me first place in a powerlifting meet, but it's because I am a fundamentally strong person. I can bullshit a lot of weight, at least in the deadlift. I use that as an example because a lot of the times it's people who are able to just their bodies are able to adapt to a lot of weight quickly. They're the ones who really suffer the most later on because they hit a wall pretty hard. Okay, so the kettlebell swing. The kettlebell swing is a hip hinge movement. And again, I'm talking about Russian kettlebell. I gotta admit, I don't got a lot of love for any other kind. There's Russian hardstyle kettlebell, and then there's Russian sport, Gira sport. That's different. That's competitive kettlebell. It's still Russian, so it's still legit. But you will find that their form is a lot different from hardstyle. So hardstyle specifically relates to barbell training, at least in the way that I instruct all of my clients and the way that I use it for myself. So we already talked about the goblet squat last time. So why do you need to make sure that you're going heavy enough? Because if it's little, you're gonna bullshit it and it's not gonna push you around. And if that makes you nervous, it shouldn't, because you're actually a lot more likely to do it badly with a light weight and not even learn or realize how badly it is until you get to a heavy enough bell. And that's why, as soon as I can pretty much determine that someone's not gonna snap their spine in half, we try to go up in weight with the swing. And often it works out well. We see right away the issues that are coming up. And that actually works well with the barbell too. However, with the barbell, usually it's a lot more weight and it's a lot more awkward. So that means, once again, if you're using something long that can torque and stuff, and really the lightest weight you can go, at least the gym that I'm at, is the 65 pounds of the barbell with the deadlift. And this is a 70-pound bell over here in the corner. That's the biggest that's at this facility, but that's a pretty fucking big bell, right? Do you get what I'm saying? It's although people are more intimidated by the kettlebell, I think it's because it shines such a light on what you're doing not well. Whereas the barbell, once again, you can do it badly and get away with it for quite some time, right? Okay, so your hip hinge, right? We went over this with the deadlift specifically. That's your hip hinge, right? So when my hips stop moving, I stop moving. If I continued to move like that, my chest would lower and my hips are still stopped, right? That is my back. If I sit my hips back and then squat, my knees down, my hips are not going back anymore, right? They're going down. So that's why the squat that I was telling you about is really a hip hinge, because the hips continue to move back as I flex my knees, okay? So in the hip hinge, it's really tough for people to differentiate between the squat and basically like a good morning, right? So your hips bend, right? That's hip flexion. And to get my hips to continue to go back, I do have to flex my knees. Now, this is not a squat because a squat would take me down this way, right? Basically, what I'm doing is I'm using that flexion in my knee to reach my hips back further by using my hamstrings, right? So, reaching hamstrings, you see how my hips continue to move back, right? And what differentiates that again is the position of my shin. My shin stays perpendicular to the floor or vertical, so my kneecaps don't move, but my thighs do rotate around my kneecap, okay? So what usually happens when people try to do that, they either squat or they, again, they will just like keep their knees locked out. If they are able to kind of sit their hips back, they'll always lose their balance, right? Why is that happening? You know. Your motherfucking feet are weak, right? People do, oh, you know, they're about to fall backwards and shit, right? It's like, yeah, lower your motherfucking toes. There you go, problem solved, right? But when people try to do that, they shift forward, right? And it's really not having any idea whatsoever where they are on planet fucking Earth. Are you happy with that? I don't like feeling like that. I don't like feeling like if I sit my hips back, I'm like falling into a black hole. Do you get what I'm saying? I know, everything is turning into an argument for going barefoot, but for fucking sake, if you can't sit your hips back without your toes flying up, you got a fucking problem, okay? So, in that hip hinge right here, so when people are learning the kettlebell first, or when they first start coaching, or when I first start coaching them, the hip hinge, right, is the deadlift, and that's what they learn, right? And then from there, they learn the swing. The bell's out in front of them, they still hinge their hips back. Everything is the same, except they're gonna be pivoting their arms from their shoulders, right? Look at that, it's a plank. Weird, okay? So, hands on the bell. Now this is where we relate it to the deadlift. Tilt. See how I engage my lats there? Whoop! Now I'm sitting back and dragging the bell to me. And you remember when you pull the bar to your shins in the setup for your deadlift? So now I'm ready to go. So that first movement is going to be, as I said in the deadlift, basically my chest moving up because my hips are moving forward, which is essentially what's happening here. Hike. Okay? Also looking for precision there. The bell came back down where I left it, okay? And that is practice. Just practice, practice, practice. And you know, here's the thing. I am literally never worried about hurting myself with kettlebells. Literally never. Which is kind of amazing. It's something I just realized not too long ago. And it's because the practice that I've put in to perfect the skill, and also the fact that I did a certification that tested me on it that was expensive, that really made me understand how to use them in a way that I am 100% not afraid of them ever hurting me. If it happens, it's a freak thing, just, I don't even know, like maybe hit my crotch or something or smash my foot. Wouldn't you like to be there with some movement, right? Like some people can't even do a plank without worrying about hurting themselves. And I'm not saying that to be offensive. I'm saying that as like, that's really not good, because you are gonna pick shit up in your life. And a lot of it is not gonna be as compact as a kettlebell, right? Like how many people have like suitcases or whatever that are nice and compact like that? They're usually awkward and, you know, a lot harder to carry. And so that's really what I want you to understand. There's no reason to doing any of this shit if you don't know how to pick stuff up well, right? And if you don't know how to keep your body in the position that you want it to be in. Now, am I like that with barbells where I'm not afraid of hurting myself? No, I'm definitely afraid of hurting myself with them. And a lot of that is because of the weight that you can add on, right? Just like what I was saying before. Now you can do some heavy shit with kettlebells, but I have this understanding that if I can't do it for physical reasons, I'm just not gonna be able to do it. I'm not gonna hurt myself. That's how drilled my technique is. And that's where I'm trying to get with barbells. And it's a process, mainly, again, because it's so much easier to put on weight and just be like, ah, fuck, I'll try it. And the margin of error is far greater, right? So that's the hip hinge, that's the kettlebell swing, but most importantly, that's my spiel about why you should learn it and why you should care about it and why you should care about all this shit. Because at the end of the day, if you don't want to be that person who can barely walk because your back hurts and you're like, 45 years old, you think your life is over, like, I don't want to be that person. I want to take care of myself. I want to be strong. I want to be able to carry my own fucking suitcase. I mean, I can't imagine having to ask someone to carry my groceries for me. And again, if you're happy being that person, that's fine. But if you want to get a better deadlift and a better squat, it's the same fucking thing. And you're just going to have to learn the foundation like the rest of us. So, hip hinge. Practice it. Practice it with your swing. Practice it with a bell that's heavy enough. This is the 70 pounder. It's a pretty big fucking bell, 32 kilo. FYI though, I can do a Turkish get up with that. It's not because I'm like an exceptional athlete. It's because I have learned how to move with a kettlebell, and you can too. Do it. Okay, so you can see a lot more clearly the type of energy that I have to produce to get this motherfucker going, okay? So again, handle, tilt, sit back and drag. Now this is lighter than me, right? So I shouldn't be falling backwards. I'm allowing myself, right, to set my posterior chain while I'm worried about hitting something. Loading my posterior chain, right, but keeping my toes down. Now drag. And precision, I put it right back down where I left it. Again, this isn't like some show-off thing. I love kettlebells, and I do love them because of what they can do for my body. I actually hate doing them for any extended period of time. I loved having my kettlebells over quarantine. After about 3 weeks, I wanted to fucking die. I never wanted to see a kettlebell again. I love barbells, but I know that I'm only as strong as my ability to do the foundational movements with far lighter weight. You have to work on technique before you can get anywhere with any other tool. My name's Karis. Fix your shitty movement, hip hinge or some shit.